Hello, everybody, and welcome to Level the Field Leadership. My name is Dr. Rachel Gallardo, and I'm very, very thankful that you have decided to tune in to this particular episode. Full disclosure, I just want to say that if you listen to episode 100, it talked about knowing when to walk away. So, how do you know when it's probably the right time to go, the right time to stop? And to be perfectly honest, that episode really kind of hit close to home because I had to think about if I was going to continue on with this podcast or not. I wasn't really sure if I wanted to do it. As many of you know, just had my son in June. And so there's a lot of emotions that come along with that and a lot of time that I used to have that I don't necessarily have. And so just taking the holidays to really kind of think about, do I want to continue to carry this torch or not? I kept having ideas at random. People would tell me that they were encouraged or they listened to episode 70 something and they, went back and listened to another episode and that helped them with this particular situation. And so just in my heart of hearts, I knew that, okay, I need to go ahead and keep moving forward because obviously I'm doing some sort of good out there and one or two people are listening. So why not continue to do it? So I guess I'll just keep moving forward until I feel the next prompting to maybe stop. But it was nice to kind of take a breather over the holidays to really kind of think about what I wanted to do. I've got some things in mind for this podcast and growing this community. So I'm very excited that you're here to walk this journey with me. And so, if you're new, the whole purpose of this podcast is to help you level the field of challenges that you're going to encounter in the work environment. And my hope is that you have the tools to be able to correct those issues or at least address them whenever they occur. I do believe that workplace burnout is very real, and anything that we can do to reduce fatigue and burnout in our lives, in our leadership roles, is going to have a positive impact on us. It's going to have a positive impact on our teams. We're going to be more present for our families. It's all just better. I still plan to post on the second and the fourth Tuesday of every month. So if you want to subscribe to this podcast, please be sure to do so wherever you're happening to listen to the sound of my voice. And for those of you that are on YouTube, you get to see the actual inside of my office. And over my right shoulder, you can see the remnants of a play area for a now 7-month-old. So anyways, I'm just happy to have you along on the journey. If this is the first time that you are listening to an episode, don't bother doing any of that subscribe stuff. You don't need to have anything cluttering into your space unless you know for sure that this is something that you want, something that you want to listen to. I actually went through and I kind of unfollowed some things and then followed some other things whenever I was on the break. So I think that's a good thing to do. Kind of taste it before you fully dive right on in. Again, if you are watching on YouTube, then hello, you get to see all of the hand gestures and my office and all sorts of things. But if not, I'm just very, very thankful that you've decided to tune in because I do believe that growth can happen and it starts in the small, little, everyday things that you do. It's not just one overall magic wand that you wave and all of a sudden you're a better leader. So I do like to base everything off of scripture because I do think that that's important. Who I am and what I do is not something that I can separate. And not to say that I'm perfect because believe me, I make a lot of mistakes. But 1 Thessalonians 4:11 says, make it to your ambition to lead a quiet life. You should mind your own business and work with your hands, just as we told you. And there's a whole background with all of that, but I think it's really telling, right? And so the whole idea behind this particular episode is for you to do your own dirty work. And by dirty work, I mean you should be the one to have those difficult conversations with your colleagues, with people that are on your team, with somebody you have an issue with at work. Don't send somebody else to do the job that you should be doing. So we're going to get into all of that. We're going to talk about why it's important that leaders actually have these conversations with people they have issues with, that they are the ones that you facilitate these discussions and that you address it early on. I've actually been in this situation before where somebody didn't like that I was doing something, and instead of just telling me directly, this person actually told somebody else to tell me to stop doing something. And it's not the fact that they didn't want me to do it anymore, which I can understand that. It's totally fine. I had a harder time understanding why that person couldn't just talk to me directly and what kind of stress and pressure that this put on the messenger to have to wait until they saw me again to tell me. That wasn't fair to the person. It's not really fair to me. I mean, I'm a big girl, I can handle it. And so I have no doubt that I'm not the only one that's been in this situation before. So my first episode that I wanted to kick off after my short period of reflection and alone time is basically just the importance of doing your own dirty work. Leadership really and truly isn't just about strategy and success. There really and truly is an emotional component to it, an emotional labor, if you will. And if you aren't willing to have those hard conversations, then you're not really leading. So that's pretty much what we're going to cover for this episode, for however many heartbeats that happens to take. So, first and foremost, why do leaders want to pass the mic? Why do they want somebody else to do something for them? Well, quite frankly, we human beings, we are biologically wired to avoid social rejection and conflict. Time and time and time again, I mean, despite some of the videos you see out there on social media about people wanting to fight each other and stuff like that, for the most part, we don't want to get involved. We don't want to engage. And there's tons of research out there that shows that if somebody is showing that they're in a detrimental situation, that people are just not going to get involved. You are more likely to have a stranger help you change a flat tire if you were all by yourself on a country road than if you were on a freeway in the middle of downtown Houston. Why? Because everybody else is thinking, well, somebody else will take care of it. And then that somebody becomes nobody. So we don't want to engage. We don't want to have any sort of social rejection. We're very concerned about people liking us. And so we tend to think, well, if I have that conversation, they might take it the wrong way, or maybe they won't appreciate it, or maybe they won't like me anymore. And whether we want to believe it or not, we are a little concerned about people still liking us. So there's this comfort trap that we as human beings, we're just kind of mentally stuck in. The second reason why leaders tend to pass the mic on to somebody else to do this for them is you flat out are just lying to yourself by saying that you're just too busy. And for those of you that can't see my hand gestures, I'm putting quotes around the phrase too busy because you're not too busy. You're avoiding, and you're using busy as a reason to avoid. That can be a whole nother episode. Also, too, there's this thing, this third reason why people or leaders tend to pass the mic. It's called the nice guy syndrome. So we want to, again, going back to this idea of avoiding confrontation and not wanting to get involved, not being involved in conflict, we really fear being the villain in someone else's story. And so there comes a point in time, we've all experienced this in our personal life where we have to just be like, well, you know what? You're going to believe what you want to believe about me. I'm tired of defending myself. You just go away. And if that means that I have to be the villain in your story to make you feel better, then so be it. But not everybody is like that, especially when it comes to our work environment, when we have to work with these individuals on a regular basis. We're running into them in the hallway. We see them in the break room. We're crossing paths when we get coffee. And so we don't want to be the villain. We want to try to get along with somebody. But if you don't have a conversation with somebody, there's always going to be that tension and pressure in the workplace. And quite frankly, I don't know about you, but my to-do list is long enough. The last thing I need is to have more tension and conflict simply because I don't want to have a conversation with somebody. It is so much better to have an uncomfortable 5-minute conversation than to be uncomfortable for the next 5 years, right? I want to talk a little bit too about how much it actually costs if you as the leader decide to delegate this responsibility to somebody else. So there are 4 main areas here. First and foremost, you erode trust with other members on your team because you're going to cause people to feel like they're being ganged up on. So instead of, I'll just use myself for an example. Let's say I have a problem with Bob. And I decide, instead of me going and talking directly to Bob, I decide that I'm going to have Terry go talk to Bob. So whenever I do that and I say, Terry, okay, Terry, I need for you to go have this conversation with Bob. Please tell Bob X, Y, and Z, and then let me know what Bob has to say. Okay, well, now I've involved Terry in a situation that Terry didn't need to be a part of. So now whenever Terry goes to talk to Bob, now Bob is going to be like, okay, so not only does Rachel have an issue, but now Terry is aware of it. Like, why couldn't Rachel just come and talk to me directly, right? So the employee, the person that you're avoiding, if you send somebody else, they're going to feel ganged up on, and it's going to be blindsided. And you've actually now created an issue between Bob and Terry just because you didn't want to have a conversation with Bob. For those of you that hopefully were able to follow along, maybe I should give it a diagram there, but it's really not fair. The second reason, the second cost whenever you delegate your responsibility of this difficult conversation to somebody else is it's kind of like that game telephone, where if I'm going to use Terry and Bob again. If I tell Terry my problem with Bob, and I explain to Terry what it is that they need to say and what Terry needs to talk to Bob about, Terry then goes and tells Bob, well, everything that I've told Terry, there are a number of filters that my communication to Terry had to filter its way through, right? So then whenever Terry goes to tell Bob, there's more filters that Terry is going to apply, and then there's even more filters that Bob is going to have to navigate through to be able to understand what Terry is saying. So it's this game of telephone. I know all of you have played telephone before. The message, starts off with I love to play with dogs and puppies. And before you know it, it's, Jack in the Box is my favorite restaurant. The message gets diluted, it gets distorted, and quite frankly, it may just be flat out inaccurate. But if me as Rachel, if I have an issue with Bob, I go straight to Bob. I can make sure that my issue with Bob is clearly communicated. There's no dilution to it. And me and Bob can then be on the same page. I hate to break it to you, but reason number three, delegating this to somebody else, it's going to cause people to lose respect in you. It just is. I wish that I could be nicer about it, but I really can't. High performers lose faith in leaders that refuse to deal with the conflict. Your people on your team, they know what you're doing. They know what you're not doing. They know what conversations you're having. They know what conversations you're not having. And the longer you continue to avoid this issue that you should be addressing because you're the leader and you're the one that needs to right the ship, they are going to little by little not respect you as much, maybe not listen to you as much. Quite frankly, they're going to start to call your bluff. And whenever you start sending out those emails saying that XYZ must be taken care of by said date and time, their thought is going to be like, oh, yeah, right. Because you didn't handle this issue over here with this person. If I decide not to do this, I know you're not going to confront me. So why should I bother to listen to what you want me to do? All right. And then finally, the fourth thing that cost of this not delegating component, it actually does create a passive aggressive environment where issues are going to fester instead of just being resolved. It's amazing to me if you look at like married couples, a lot of times there's not necessarily, I mean, sometimes there is, but most of the time it's not one issue that came out of nowhere that caused them to have a problem or to need to get divorced. It's a lot of the little things that didn't get addressed along the way. And then now all of a sudden you leave the toothpaste out on the counter and she explodes. It's got nothing to do with the toothpaste. It's all of these other little things that kept adding up. And then all of a sudden we're now ticked off. The same thing is true in the work environment. If it seems small, go ahead and address it anyways, because quite frankly, it's easier to have a conversation about something small than to have a conversation whenever it's blown way out of proportion. HR is involved, policies violated. Now we're on a PIP, like it's a whole thing. So you're better off to take care of it early on. So that way you keep the work environment at an even keel. Whenever you don't address an issue, it's kind of like throwing a boulder into a calm lake. There's a whole lot of ripples going on, even though nobody really sees the boulder anymore. But if you address the issue before the boulder actually lands in the water, that boulder gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And before you know it, it's like throwing a little pebble into the water. We take care of it, and the rest of the work environment continues to stay smooth. If you don't, that boulder is going to blow so many things up out of the water. So why is it that you should take a leave? I already told you some of the costs of delegating this task to somebody else, but there are some benefits to it too. So I'm a huge fan of a SWOT analysis. I gave you your threats, and now here are your strengths. So one of the benefits of taking the lead in these conversations is that you actually are going to end up strengthening the relationship. So whenever you have this conversation and it's done well, you're actually going to create a stronger bond with the person that you're having this conversation with, because that person is going to think, Rachel cares enough about me and our relationship, excuse me, to have this conversation. And she took time out of her day for us to sit down and talk. She, found out when my schedule was free too. And now we're sitting like human beings, we're having a conversation, and it's a 30-minute conversation that likely we're able to be honest and open about other things too. And so we learn more about each other. We strengthen our bonds that much more. Whenever you avoid situations and you avoid those conversations, you're not learning much about the person. And you're actually going to weaken the bond overall. It also provides an opportunity for clarity and speed. So this is the second reason why you should take the lead on having this conversation. Direct feedback allows for immediate course correction. So from a parenting standpoint, you don't wait until your kid has been jumping on the bed for 3 weeks before you tell them, hey, stop jumping on the bed. The first time you see it, that's whenever you address the problem, or you should, at least according to operant conditioning. But that, again, that's another episode. Um, Whenever you address it immediately, you are correcting the issue immediately. Because if you allow it to go on and on and on and on and on, even whenever you sit down and have the conversation, one of the first things you're going to have to answer is, here's why I let this situation go on for the last 6 months, and here's why we need to have this conversation now. So you're adding more layers to it by not having the conversation. So the sooner you do this, the better. And then the third reason, the third strength that you have by taking the lead and having this difficult conversation is you're actually setting the standard for how the rest of the team is going to handle situations. There is no way in the world anybody else is going to feel comfortable talking to people on their teams if they have these sorts of issues if they see that their own leader is not even willing to do it. Now, granted, if this somebody on your team doesn't feel comfortable having a direct conversations with the other person, they may want for you to be a part of that dialogue. That's okay. But if you're not having these conversations, you can't guide and help somebody else have the conversation, and the other people are not going to feel empowered to have these conversations either. So leaders should be leading by example. You should be setting the tone for what is and is not acceptable on your team, on your department, in your organization. And if you're not willing to do that, then you're not leading. It just is what it is. So how in the world can you address the situation? I gave you the reasons why you should have this conversation, what happens if you don't have this conversation, but here's your practical framework for how you have these sorts of conversations with people, even if you just absolutely positively in the pit of your stomach don't want to do it. So a couple of pointers to think about. Number one, I want to give you the 24-hour rule. Address the issue as quickly as you possibly can. Do not let it sit for a long period of time. And if you need a little bit of time to calm down, like maybe you need a full day. So now we're pushing 36 or 48 hours. That's okay, because you don't want to go into a conversation, emotionally charged. You want to go into it very logical, very matter of fact, and you want to address the issue with the person, not attack the person. So if you need that 24 hours, even if you need 48, I wouldn't go any longer than 72 though, no longer than 3 days. You got to address it, because quite frankly, if you don't address it, it's going to take root and it's going to become negative within your team, within your interpersonal relationships with that person, and it's going to get in the way of you guys being able to address the issue. Also, too, the second advice I want to give you is whenever you do have a conversation with this person, don't do it in the middle of a team meeting. Don't do it over text. Younger generation, not saying all of you do this, but if you are part of the younger generation and you only want to have a conversation via text, the rest of us are just not having it. Quite frankly, maybe I shouldn't just pick on the younger people. I know older people that don't want to actually have a conversation. They're real fast to be keyboard warriors, real safe behind their iPhone or their Android. But when it comes to sitting down, looking somebody in the eye and having a conversation, they don't want to do it. Give the conversation the gravity it deserves. Sit down with that person, go for coffee, sit in the conference room, go for a walk, do at a minimum, be on Zoom. So that way, or whatever platform you guys use, so that way there can at least be some tone and some nonverbal communication that goes along with your message. If you're doing this, via Slack or in a text or an email, you're missing out on an opportunity to really connect with this person. And you also want to give them privacy. So doing this in a meeting or in the hallway, that's not the right time to do it. Give them some respect and say, hey, I'd like to have a somewhat challenging conversation with you. Do you have some time later today or tomorrow for us to talk? I can go to your office. We can meet in the conference room, et cetera, et cetera. Be upfront, be cordial, but be direct as well. The third thing that I recommend is make sure that you have some sort of script for what it is that you want to say. So you want to have 2 or 3 kind of opening lines just to break the ice. So, letting that person know, like, look, it's very hard for me to have this conversation with you, but I do think it's important that we talk about it. I'm sharing this because I want you to succeed. I want for you to progress and to be successful. And I feel as if I don't share this, that it's actually going to be a hindrance for you. Like something along that line. You're not attacking the person. You're letting that person know that you don't really want to do this, but it's not necessarily about what your feelings are if you're a leader. Sometimes we have to do things that we don't feel like doing, because it's the right thing to do. And this is one of those situations. But being transparent with that person and say, look, if there was any other way that I could, that we could address this, I would do it. But I care about you too much as a teammate that I don't want to just sweep it under the rug. Thank you for taking the time to meet with me. It might be hard for you to hear what I have to say, but I think it's really important for you to hear it. And like I said, you'll actually find, even if the person gets super defensive and screams and yells and walks out of the office, there's a little bit of truth that will sink in. And maybe a couple days or a couple of hours later, you can go back to them and say, look, I know what I said was really upsetting. Do you have some time? I'd like for us to continue this conversation. So you want to know what you're going to say. Again, don't attack the person. Don't attack necessarily their character. Don't call them a bad human. Like, that's not it. But you know what, Bob? I'm really tired of you coming into work late. You know that you're supposed to be here at 9 o'clock in the morning. You continue to clock in at 9:30, 10 o'clock, 10:30. It's not a good look for the rest of the team. You're a better person than this. Help me understand why you're having such a hard time coming to work. And that's just an example. I've actually had that conversation many, many years ago. But you want to open that dialogue. So you want to focus on the situation and focus on the impact that the person is having. When you do this, here's how it affects the rest of the team. Keep it as objective as possible. There's no need to go down to the subjective lane. There's no need for an emotional outburst. There's no need for screaming and yelling. One adult to another adult should not be screaming and yelling. Let's have a little more emotional intelligence than that. But you do want to practice that. It's called the SBI model. So situation, behavior, impact. Keep it objective, keep it very specific. And if you're addressing this early on, within 48 hours of when you saw the situation occur, the person is actually going to remember what the heck you're talking about. And so the chances of them changing their behavior go up. If you saw this thing happen and in 3 months you want to talk to them about it, they may not even remember that they did it. So you're not making an impact whenever you wait that long. So I hope that this is giving you something to think about. I know somebody listening to this right now is thinking about, man, I really need to have a conversation with such and such. I've been putting it off, putting it off, putting it off. It is the start of a new year. I'm not really into New Year's resolutions because, in my opinion, if I want to change something, I'm just going to change it. Now, I do have a word that I use every year, but that's not for this episode. I do pick a word every year. I'm that person, but I want to just challenge all of you to identify one conversation that you've been putting off or trying to delegate and schedule it for this week. Do it right now. I mean, whenever I post this, it's going to be on a Tuesday. You've got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, if you listen to it right away. You got Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to listen to it and just decide, you know what? I'm not going to carry this emotional baggage with me for the rest of 2026. We are 13 days in. Let's just deal with it, address it, and move it along. So I just want to close by saying that leadership really and truly is a privilege, and it should be earned every day by being courageous and also being honest. And if you're not willing to be courageous and honest and also kind, then again, you're not really leading. You're neglecting yourself, you're neglecting your team. And I fully and truly believe that everybody is capable of doing better. And maybe this is where your better for 2026 begins. So I just want to remind everybody, like I always do, that you are made to be a leader right where you are, wherever you are leading. And I do hope that this episode can help you level the field of challenges that you face while you walk this journey of leadership. Take care of yourself, take care of your teams. Share this episode with somebody who you think is struggling with having conversations or maybe is just non-confrontational or I don't want to hurt their feelings. If you've heard those phrases before, then this is the episode that this person needs to hear. And if not, you'll have it in your toolkit for whenever that time comes when you have to have a conversation with somebody, because if you're in a leadership position, believe me, that time is coming. But I fully believe that you can 1000% do this. And I'm so happy to help. I'm happy to be on this journey with you. If there's ever anything I can do, please don't hesitate to reach out. And until next time.